Hello guys, welcome to another video, and this one we're going to be talking about a bit of Necropolis news that GGG has put out. So I know for most people Necropolis is a bit of an afterthought at this point, but you know, they have made a news post about what's going to happen at the end of Necropolis League and all the information surrounding that league and its mechanics. So let's get straight into that. So firstly, we get immediate confirmation here that the Necropolis League will not be going core in 3.25. So both the Lantern of Aramor and its Allflames, and the Necropolis Graveyard and its corpses, those things will not be making their way into the core game. This is not surprising really, I didn't expect any of this to go core, but I will say that I thought the Allflames in concept were quite good. Perhaps they'll make a return in a more refined form in the future. We then get the exact time for the end of the Necropolis League. I'll link this post below so that you can check that out in your local time zone if you're interested. As normal, all progress will migrate to the parent league for your characters. And we also get some information here that any existing Coffins and Allflames will be deleted, so they won't be holding tons of stash space over in Standard League if that's something that you care about. Now, one of the major bits of information in this post is the only part of Necropolis League that will be going core in 3.25, and that's its exclusive unique items. All of them except for the Perandus Pact. This unique jewel was quite comfortably the strongest of the bunch of Necropolis uniques, and it provided a huge amount of a single stat depending on the modifier on the jewel itself, and where it was being placed in your passive tree, and of course how many passives you had allocated around its radius. This jewel not going into the core drop pool in 3.25 is not too surprising, I think. In a way, it's fairly similar to that which was taken in terms of power level, though I'd say that that which was taken jewel with very good modifiers is still considerably stronger, and you can add to that the fact that the Perandus Pact is far more specific in that it requires a more tailored passive skill tree as well. Regardless, the Perandus Pact is not going into the core drop pool, at least not in 3.25. There is a very slim chance that this item is being added as a loot drop from a boss or a more specific mechanic, but I wouldn't count on it. So, the rest of the Necropolis unique items are going to be going straight into the core drop pool in 3.25. And to be clear, since we had many new unique items added in 3.24 as a result of the boss loot table splits, this is only the exclusive Necropolis uniques, each of which will be going over now, beginning with Nevalius Inheritance. This unique belt is all about modifying flask effect and duration, but it has the rare property of changing the stats that it provides based on your character level. It grants a flat 150% increased flask duration and 60% reduced flask effect, but then reduces your flask duration by 2% per level and increases flask effect by 1% per level. At level 100, this belt provides 40% increased flask effect at the cost of 50% reduced duration, and with options such as the Tides of Time available, it's unlikely that this will see much use on high-level characters. However, I think the strength of Nevalius Inheritance is as a leveling unique for leveling your ults to be equipped in the second half of the campaign and used alongside the unique flasks Witchfire Brew or Replica Witchfire Brew. These flasks grant a Curse Aura, level 21 Despair or Vulnerability depending on which one you're using, and this Curse Aura is not affected by modifiers to flask effect. So you gain the full strength of a level 21 Curse, and benefit from the increased flask duration to keep its effect up longer, which is nice for leveling some Chaos or physical damage based characters, but even then, this unique belt is extremely niche and I don't see it being used all that often. Next we have the Grattus Signet, a unique ring. This item is very generic when it comes to the stats that it provides. You've got some attack speed, cast speed, some energy shield, some life, and then there's these two modifiers. Attacks inflict Unnerve on critical strike, and spells inflict Intimidate on critical strike. Unnerve is a debuff which makes the entity take 10% increased spell damage, while Intimidate is the same but for attack damage instead. The bizarre thing here about this ring is they've been switched in terms of application. So attack crits inflict the increased spell damage taken debuff, while spell crits inflict the increased attack damage taken debuff. If it was the other way around, this item would just be a fairly generic option for early progression on many characters. But as it is, I really only see this item being used specifically on very early progression cast on critical strike characters, before they're able to obtain Unnerve from other sources such as glove implicits, and while the other stats are still considerably beneficial. The one thing Grattus Signet has going on is its level requirement, which means it can just be thrown onto most characters early on for some useful stats, but otherwise I don't see this item being used very much either. Next is the most interesting of the Necropolis uniques which are going core, and that's the Hand of Phrecia. This item was seemingly designed as a unique to boost link skills, but it ended up being predominantly used without link skills on solo characters. Now, I covered these unique gloves quite a lot on this channel at the start of the Necropolis League because of the very special interaction that they have with generosity support. The final modifier on this unique, non-cursed auras from your skills only apply to you and Link's targets. This overrides the supported auras do not affect you modifier on generosity support, which means you gain the full benefit from the increased aura effects from generosity, but the aura will still affect you. This interaction breathed life into these unique gloves and meant that they were picked up and used on a lot of builds which otherwise wouldn't have given them a second glance. And it also made for an interesting use case for Victario's influence in a more generic, budget-friendly aura stacking setup. The big question here is whether this interaction stays in the game or not, as for me, this is likely a bug which simply wasn't fixed at the time because it's not particularly game-breaking, but now with the item going into the core drop pool, I could see this being changed, but we'll have to wait for the patch notes to know for sure. Lastly, we have Veruso's Ambition, a pair of unique boosts which have been designed around the Ravenous skill, which previously existed on the Warlock of the Mist's ascendancy from Affliction League. Veruso's Ambition makes monster names also display their monster category, which is important for the Ravenous skill, which allows the character to consume a targeted corpse to then gain bonuses against monsters of the same type. And the buff is quite strong too, with 15% more damage against and 15% less damage taken from monsters of that specific category. Now in Affliction, although it was quite clunky, this ability made more sense, as you were able to buy corpses from the vendor in the Wildwood, and those corpses would also have a type, so you could, for example, select an Eldritch corpse and take it into Maven's Arena to be consumed, which would then grant you 15% more damage against and 15% less damage taken from the Maven for the entire encounter or until you die. However, you cannot target corpses that you summon yourself from abilities like Desecrate, and with the introduction of Veruso's Ambition in Necropolis, the corpse vendor system is gone and the ability hasn't been modified, which just makes this skill even more awkward to use than it was before. Veruso's Ambition, unfortunately, is another item which I see not being used much, if at all. And that's it, the Necropolis exclusive unique items which will be going into the core drop pool in 3.25. Let me know what you think about those items below, and thank you for watching this video, and thank you for your ongoing support. As always, stay tuned and stay safe.